Hey guys, I'm doing something a bit different thanks to my other video doing so well. This is what if Naruto was an MHA. Remember to check out original work in the description. Chapter 1, The Rise of Kirima. Hahaha. So many people, over just one little thing like this? Stealing it was the right choice, wonder how many people will freak when I escape with it. A young male spoke, most of him disguised, as he looked at a small, rounded, metal device that he had no idea what it was. He wore an orange hoodie with the hood pulled up to cover his hair, and over his hoodie he had a red cloak with black flames near the bottom of it. Covering his mouth and cheeks, he wore a medical mask, and he had on black pants to go with his orange hoodie. He was on the shorter side, being 166 centimeters in height, not overly tall for a guy, but he was muscular to match with it. Blonde hair peeked out from under his hood, and he had orange markings around his yellow eyes with bar-shaped pupils. He was on the top of a building, surrounded by 3 heroes. They had been called in by the police to arrest him, after he had stolen the weird little object that he had in his hands. Give it up, we have you cornered. A massive man, 205 centimeters tall, with massive muscles and a large, square jaw. He had thick metal bands around his wrists, and his abs were on display since his hero costume was skin-tight and didn't cover everything. Spiked back white hair, and his fists slamming together to show that he was ready for a fight. Def arms, right? The teenager asked with a grin under his mask. Cool, you're a pretty big name, but not as big as All Might. He had 2 pretty big name heroes after him, and a hero who was in the top 10. I was more than enough to handle a simple feat, don't see why you 2 needed to be called in. I didn't need any help in this. A tan-skinned, tiny and muscular woman spoke with a confident grin. She was even shorter than the thief, 159 centimeters in height, and contrasting her tan skin was long white hair and red eyes, as well as her long white bunny ears instead of human ones. She had an attractive body, barely hidden by a white leotard with a yellow moon on it, white gloves, and purple thigh-high stockings. He broke into a highly secured vault, and stole a very expensive item. They called in those best suited for this situation. A scruffy man, also a tall 183 centimeters, with long black hair and a scruffy face, as well as yellow goggles on. He wore all black, except for his gray scarf that seemed overly large. Mirko, and Eraserhead. You're super hot, and you're scruffy. The team pointed to the 2 of them in turn. He might be in a little bit of trouble. PPFFFFFT, Scruffy, you're a scum for being a villain, but I like the way you speak. Mirko spoke as she pointed back at the villain. She tensed her legs and rushed off at him faster than a speeding rabbit. He jumped up a clear 25 feet into the air and dodged her, landing on the opposite side of the rooftop on his hands. She didn't hesitate to crack the rooftop when she changed directions and chased after him. Without looking at Mirko, he ducked underneath her kick, and turned his head to look at her face from between her cleavage, with her looking down at him. Def Arms threw a punch at the villain, and it was dodged as well, slamming into the rooftop and getting his fist stuck in it. Mirko put her feet on his chest, and kicked off of him to chase after the villain. He's got some kind of quirk that gives him excellent spatial awareness. Eraserhead's eyes glowed red, and his hair stood up, as he activated his own quirk and stopped the quirk of the villain they were facing. He threw his scarf out and slingshot himself towards the villain, who threw himself off the top of the building to escape his line of sight. Mirko stopped at the edge of the building, looking down. You guys are going to slow me down, I've got this. Mirko jumped off the building after him, and she saw blink when he touched the side of the building with his hand and stuck to it. She kept falling though, passing him, and she grinned when she realized he had jumped, knowing that she would jump after him. He jumped onto the side of another building, so she kicked the side of the building and followed after him. In midair, she threw a kick at him as she passed him by, faster than him, but he ducked in the air and flipped as he reached the next building. He jumped through the air again, and she chased after him in their mid-air fight the second she could get her foot onto the side of another building. In minutes, they had already traveled far away from their starting building. Eraserhead and Def Arms long since left behind in the chase. She's practically flying, this is so much fun. The thief thought as he landed on the side of the building, and he felt her coming behind him. Instead of jumping, he did a backflip, and allowed her to kick the side of the building, her body breaking right through the glass, while he landed on the same building upside down, sticking to it, having just fallen a few feet. He waited for her. You're not getting away from me, where the hell did he go? Mirko shouted as she ran to the edge of the broken glass, and looked out into the distance. He had to have jumped to try and escape from her, that was what he had been doing for minutes now. The thief pushed off the building with his hands, front flipping so that he stood right in front of her. Pushing his medical mask up just enough so that his lips were visible, he gave her a swift kiss on the lips, before he pulled back when she out of instinct kicked where he had been. Pulling his mask back down, she glared at him for the kiss. Consider that a thanks for the fun chase. You slit me tongue, you bastard, you've got some balls, I'll give you that. Mirko saw the thief jump again, and she chased after him. A fiery passion to kick him in her eyes, she went full speed, breaking part of the building she jumped out of. She looked him eye to eye as he flipped through the air, her body sailing underneath him as he landed on top of the roof of a shorter building, and she went clean over it. As soon as she landed, she jumped after him. Oddly enough, he was standing completely still on the building, waiting for her to join him. He was looking at his wrist, which had a watch on it. She blinked in surprise, no doubt he was checking to see how long he had escaped from her. That time was over now, because she was going to end this. 5, 4. She landed. 3, 2. So, you decided to give up, Mirko started to say, before she suddenly felt extremely weak, and dropped to her hands and knees. All of her strength having left her body, and she saw him grinning down at her, his mouth visible again. 1. As hot as you are, that kiss was for more than just a thanks for the fun. I didn't just slip you tongue, I slipped you poison. Don't worry, it's not lethal dose or anything, but once it kicks in, it really packs a kick. The thief stated to her as he leaned down to her level once her arms started to shake from the effort of holding herself up. She barely had the energy left to even glare at him. He pulled out a knife. Shit. Mirko thought as he brought it closer to her. He cut open a hole in her leotard, right between her breasts, exposing cleavage. Pulling the stolen device out of his hoodie pocket, he dropped the device between her breasts. She fell onto her side, her arms not even able to holding her up anymore. Oh, I don't even want this thing, I just knew stealing this would be an awesome way to start this thing out. I'm not interested in stuff like this. The thief said as he pulled out a marker, and he drew a spiral on her breast, right above her heart. Grabbing onto her wrist, he started to strip her gloves off of her hands, taking both of her gloves. And now to collect my first trophy. Thanks Bun Bun, you can say you were able to steal that back from me, I don't mind. I've got what I wanted. He put her gloves in his pocket, and walked backwards towards the edge of the building. You bastard. My villain name is Kirima, remember that? With that, he was gone, taking a single step off the side of the building and dropping down into the alley below. Cursing her luck, but unable to follow him, she was forced to stare down at her ungloved hands. With Kirima. Phew, that one was closer. If she had actually hit me, I would have been screwed. Kirima spoke as he got out his phone and started to call somebody. Pulling the mask off his face, and taking his cloak off, folding it up and pulling it into his hoodie front pocket. His whisker marks cheeks were revealed, and as he pulled down his hoodie his golden spiky hair was fully revealed. The person he called answered the phone. Sup Naruto, what are you calling about? Are you watching the news? Naruto asked with a wide grin across his face. He wondered if he had made news yet. He really wanted to see if his first crime had made national TV, or just local television. All might stop the weird villain from stealing some kid's body, but otherwise it was a pretty slow news day. Naruto clicked his teeth in annoyance, before he hung up his phone. It seemed like he needed to have a repeat performance. Chapter 2 How Far the Mountain Falls. I like tall women with big tits, but this is a bit much. Naruto grinned under his mask, the sword strapped to his back, the goal of his weekly theft one would say. He had spent the last 3 months doing a different theft every week, making sure to appear commit his crime where a different hero was close enough to appear. Sometimes, he would come across some of them that nearly captured him, but other times he would actually defeat the hero and take something from them, leaving behind what he had stolen so that he could keep the trophy he wanted. He didn't want anything he stole. What he wanted was trophies from heroes, because it was one thing to steal, but to steal something from a hero and leave behind the object they chased him for. Now that was something else, he would be noticed for that for sure. Week 1, Mirko's gloves. Week 2, Bubble Girl's face mask. Week 3, Fourth Kind's rings. Week 4, Gunhead's vest. Week 5, Mirko's thigh-high socks. Week 6, Mi's Joke's bandana. Week 7, Snipe's cloak. Week 8, Ingenium's helmet. Week 9, Sir Night Ice glasses. Week 10, Mirko's neck warmer. Week 11, Mirko's hip guards. Week 12, I don't really know who this one is. Naruto realized that week 12 into his trophy collection, he didn't really know who the giant woman chasing him was. He also realized that he had been viciously chased down by Mirko more than the other heroes. He would have taken her gloves multiple times, but she just kept wearing the same type of gloves each time, since heroes all had multiple copies of their same suits. He ended up taking something different from her each time, and all that was left was her leotard. A giant hand slapped the ground, and he rolled out of the way of it just in time, rolling onto his back, with his hands behind his head. Massive, 2062 centimeters tall, with super thick and shiny blonde hair with purple eyes, but with white pupils. A figure many women would kill for, but a skin-tight bodysuit that was about the same color as her skin over most of it, but purple with orange. He loved that, outlines around the orange. She had on a purple eye mask with horns connected to it, not much he could take from her. She was careful to not destroy the concrete completely, but she still ended up doing damages to it. You're the annoying kid who has been in the news the last few months. MT. Lady. Just realized who you were. Wow, your hand is moving down towards me really. Gotcha. MT. Lady slapped her hand down against the ground where he was, silencing him. She used only enough force to gently push him into the ground, not even enough to crack the concrete. She grinned and waved her other hand to the news media when she saw all of her fans were taking pictures of her. Guess he wasn't ready to make my ass quantums. MT. Lady used one of her signature phrases and lifted her other hand up off of the ground, giving the photographers a wiggle of her hips. The villain wasn't below her hand. Fast, gotta let the guy finish what he was saying there, honey. Naruto said from her wrist that she had lifted up. He had dodged her slap, and had stuck himself to her wrist, winking at her as he hopped off of her wrist when she slapped it. Landing on her shoulder, he jumped off instantly when her other hand went to slap it. Well now, I don't hit women, I think you should extend the same rule to me, right? Guess not then. Naruto landed on the side of her hip, and jumped off onto her knee when she grit her teeth and punched her hip. He was being really annoying, so she jerked her knee and tried to throw him off, but he stayed latched onto her. Get off of me. MT. Lady danced in one spot from the effort of attempting to throw him off. She reached down to grab onto him, but he crawled around her leg so that he was on the back of her thigh. Her hands darted after him. Hey. MT. Lady shouted and gave herself a harsh spank when he crawled onto her ass, and he jumped onto her bicep, before he jumped up so that he landed smack dab in the middle of her face. He landed on her face before his ass was done jiggling. Who is just the cutest pro hero? Naruto reached down, and pat her nose a few times. You are. Naruto continued to baby talk her. She was a rookie hero, so that was going to anger her for sure. Feeling something jet at him from behind, he stopped sticking to her. MT. Lady punched herself in the face with all of her power, knocking herself off of her own 2 feet. Her body and costume started to shrink down in size as she was sent flying, knocked out cold by her own immense strength. Her eyes were already rolled back up into her head, and by the time she hit the ground, she was already mostly down to her real size. Once she was on the ground, she continued to shrink until she was back to a normal 162 centimeters. She groaned, quickly started to regain consciousness, hitting the ground waking her back up. That was humiliating. MT. Lady started to get back up, and when she sat back up, Naruto was there. He stuck his fingers right into her mouth, surprising her, but she felt her pulse slow down as the poison took effect quickly. Dropping back down onto her back, Naruto looked at her. Just gonna take this. Naruto grabbed her mask and removed it from her head. Grabbing onto her, he stood up before the press got to their location. What are you doing? It was hard to breathe for MT. Lady, but Naruto jumped with her in his arms, and dropped her off at the top of the nearest building, away from the press. Naruto took his stolen sword, a historical one he took from a museum, and he looked down off the top of the building and saw the press was quickly gathering. Naruto took a deep breath, before he raised the sheathed sword up over his head. Kirima has escaped from the hero once again. I've taken my trophy, so I leave this item behind for the heroes to return to the museum. Naruto called out as he tossed the sword behind him, right on Mount. Lady, since the press couldn't see her right now. Naruto turned around and looked down at the unmasked woman. Don't worry, Mount. Lady, I only gave you enough poison to down you for 5 minutes or so, just enough time for me to make my escape. Naruto walked backwards, before he did a backflip off the other side of the building. Week 12, MT. Lady's mask. Getting out of his costume, Naruto packed it all away in the front pocket of his hoodie, and dehooded himself as he made his way out of the back of the alley. Blending in with the crowd by the time his eyes had turned from toad eyes to blue ones. He couldn't hide the giddy grin from his lips though, he was just so happy that he could add another trophy to his collection. His fame as a villain was growing, Naruto was really helping him become famous by going after him with such a fury. He wondered what hero he would take on next week. Did you see that? Kirima escaped again. For a villain who keeps getting away with his crimes, it's weird that he keeps returning everything he steals. Naruto grinned when he heard two men on their way to work speak about what he had just done. His fame as Kirima was on the rise, and he was just as famous as he was infamous, because he never actually kept anything he stole from the places he robbed. People were left feeling conflicted about him. He took clothes from heroes, but he never took the devices they used to assist in their quirks, and he never caused permanent damage to them. He took clothes that they easily replaced, and it left a lot of people wondering about what his motives were. Wonder what he took from MT. Lady, she just wears that bodysuit, you think she's, naked? Nah, I would do that if I wasn't sure she would have a way to get back home without being seen. Naruto wouldn't do that to somebody, his goal wasn't to ruin heroes' lives. He wasn't going to do that, give them a little humiliation maybe, but to do something like ruining their reputation was just not fun. He liked the attention, and he liked being chased by heroes. I'm more interested in why he keeps giving the stuff he takes back. Who wants some ancient stuff, or some weird gadgets I don't know how to use? Nah, I just want my little trophies. I'm gonna hang this one up right next to Miruko's hip guards. Naruto thought, grinning even wider as he signaled to a cat. He was going to get a ride back to his apartment, since he was a pretty far distance away from where he lived. He had to travel outside of his hometown to make this one happen. Naruto looked outside of the cab, glancing around, he saw Kamui Woods rushing onto the scene that he had left behind him. Naruto wondered when Miruko was going to rush to the scene, only to not find him there. She was pretty serious about catching him. Naruto Uzumaki. Age, 15. Quirk, Toad, he has all the powers of a toad. Chapter 3 Winter Show. SSSSS so F fucking cold. Toads hibernated, and the cold was a nightmare to those with quirks that made them like creatures who had to deal with this issue. The cold months had descended on Japan, and Naruto had pretty much been forced to take a small break from his criminal behavior, much to the surprise of the news that reported on his strange disappearance. It would seem that if he wanted to stay in the news, he would have to commit another crime, at least 1 or 3 more if he wanted to make sure not to be forgotten or at least not to have his face vanish from the news completely. Do you hear me out there, Kirima? Just because you're laying low, doesn't mean I haven't forgotten about you. Nah. Naruto huddled up in his blankets, realizing with a grin that because Miruko was so determined to catch him herself, that she wasn't going to let him be forgotten. Every time she was on the news, she would send a message to him about how she was going to catch him. I'm so tired. Naruto laid on his side, and rolled around his bed so that he was wrapped with even more blankets. Maybe he would just sleep until spring. Onii-chan. Me-chan, we're hungry. There goes that plan. Naruto felt small hands pushing against his blanket fortress against the cold. Naruto unwrapped himself, and he looked down and saw 2 very different looking children were staring up at him. A little boy who had the appearance of a polar bear, his quirk making him look like a humanoid polar bear. The little girl showed no visible signs of having a quirk, but she was only 3 years old, so she still had time. You can settle down. Girl, okay, stop. I said stop, you little. Naruto jerked awake more clearly when they didn't stop pushing their hands against his face. More children, between ages 3 and 8, started to come into the room, close to 11 of them in total. Naruto could practically see on their faces just how hungry they were, so standing up, Naruto decided to get to it and make them something to eat. Thanks, Ni-chan. He wasn't their brother, and he wasn't related to any of them by blood, marriage, or anything that would make him any of their siblings. They just called him that, because he was the oldest, and he was the one that did everything for that. Naruto grabbed the smallest one of them, younger than 3, who was just a small baby being held by one of the other ones. Naruto let out a yawn as a baby played with his face, pushing his tiny hands up against his cheeks. Just so you guys know, I'm just making PB&J for all of you, except you get milk. Naruto jiggled the baby in his arms, and he was greeted with some cheers. Peanut butter was a luxury, quite expensive in Japan, so the fact he was making it at all showed that he was giving them a little gift for their taste buds. Truthfully though, he was just so tired that he didn't have the energy to make anything else without heating himself up son. Feeding them, that was his job, kind of. The Yuzu orphanage. The orphanage that had been started up by his mother, to help find new families for children with no parents. Well, at least that was what he had heard, since he had never met his mother or father personally. Ironically enough, his parents had died shortly after he was born, and had left him not just a part of the family business, but as a resident of the orphanage as well. While all of the other children were adopted, Naruto never had been, because this was his home in a way. Didn't matter though. He had his parents' dreams on his shoulders, all of the responsibilities they had were his now, and the future of these orphans were on his shoulders. When the caretakers went home for the day, it was up to Naruto to take care of the children after hours, since none of the caretakers needed to stay after hours now that he was old enough to take care of the young children. Kirima isn't in the news today either. When is he going to do his cool tricks and flips and stuff? Naruto looked at the TV in the playroom as he walked to the kitchen, and saw some kids huddled in front of it. A lot of the children loved watching the news when it was about heroes and villains, while the older kids, 6-9 years old, were able to watch it. When regular news stuff played, they turned it back to cartoons. Dinner is coming up soon, so turn that off and get plates set up. Anyway, I'm sure Kirima is going to show up in the news any day now. Naruto rubbed the top of the oldest boy's head with a grin on his face. Next day. Music, RWBY soundtrack, RWBY vs FNKI. Come on now, don't make this too easy for me now. Naruto jumped backwards, flipping over a large pink dragon claw that made to grab him. Naruto landed on top of a moving truck, watching as a large pink dragon with spiky blonde hair flew after him, a dragon wearing Chinese-styled combat clothing for a female. You know, you will be like the third person in the top 10 to give me a victory trophy. Naruto ducked underneath a claw and laid down on his side with an unseen grin. Your reign of villainy ends today. Sexy, dirty, talk me some more. Reign of villainy just makes me sound like a king. Naruto teased as he rolled off the side of the truck and onto the street, rolling across the ground as the number 9 hero Ryukyu flew over him, his arms behind his head as he stopped rolling. Ryukyu ended up losing control of her ability to fly as she was forced to stop abruptly, because flying was one thing she could do, but slowing down and stopping at the drop of a dime wasn't easy for something the size of a dragon. Before she hit the ground or the cars in the busy street, she transformed back into a human form. She landed on her feet, facing Naruto's direction as he managed to lay down in the street right between the passing traffic. Do you take anything seriously, or is this all just a game to you? Ryukyu asked as she started to run towards him as he sat up. But, you know what they say, when it comes to heroes and villains, it takes one of each to play the game. Naruto flipped and landed on the side of a passing truck, because while she ran at him, he rode the truck and passed by her. Sup, don't mind me, just hitching a ride. Naruto winked at the driver of the truck, who had his window rolled down to enjoy the brisk air, something Naruto didn't really agree with. Naruto looked and saw Ryukyu had already transformed, and was chasing after him again. Looking ahead, Naruto saw his target. You won't be thinking this is a game when you're in jail. Ryukyu quickly, gained ground on Naruto as he made his way to the top of the truck. Naruto leaned near the edge of the truck though and glanced to the side. Her hand was feet away from grabbing Naruto, when he raised his hands up and allowed himself to fall over the edge of the truck. Right when it passed by a bridge, meaning Naruto fell off the side of the bridge as well, towards the icy cold water down below. When he vanished from sight, Ryukyu flapped her wings and slowed down, before she changed directions and flew off the side of the bridge. She transformed into her human form and landed on the dead grass next to the water. Turning around sharply, she didn't see any hint of the villain she was chasing. She felt a hand on her shoulder though. Her eyes widened and she looked up, seeing her target drop down from the bottom of the bridge above them. Before she could transform, she was already reaching up to her head to activate her quirk. He shoved a handful of fingers into her mouth. She felt all of her strength quickly leave her body, and she dropped down on her face. What is your quirk? Ryukyu couldn't help but find it hard to connect the dots between the traits of his quirk. Naruto just reached into his pocket and pulled out the item he stole, something personal of Ryukyu's, an antique watch from so many years ago that it was worth a fortune. Naruto put it next to her head, before he grabbed her headband from her hair, and pulled it off. Naruto looked at her shivering in the cold, before he also took a blanket he had in his backpack, and he draped it over her. The poison will wear off soon enough, this will keep you warm until you can go home. I understand your pain. Naruto ignored her question and saluted her. Standing up, and looking towards the news who had arrived at the side of the bridge, Naruto gave a large bow to his audience. Another day, another trophy, and my dear Ryukyu here will always remember this as a day she won't be able to forget. Naruto jumped into the water next to him, and vanished underneath the currents. Later. Kirima is cool. Naruto sat on the couch behind the children watching the video of what he had done today, absolutely huddled up in blankets and completely shivering. Jumping into the icy water had been a huge mistake, and it had nearly cost him big, even though it was a cool escape. Doing it had nearly put him to sleep on the spot, but thankfully he had been a little prepared and was wearing warming pads under his clothes. They saved his life and allowed him to get to a dry spot out of the view of the cameras. For hours though now, he had been unable to do much of anything, the cold was still getting to him that badly. Naruto grinned down at the children, though they couldn't see him do it since their eyes were glued to the TV. Now, he was going to take a few weeks to recover from this. Chapter 4 Get your move on. Oh, Kirima and Mirko are at it again. The citizens of the city of Tokyo were greeted once more to the side of Mirko giving a heated chase after the rising star of villains Kirima. A few teenagers had taken to start wearing orange hoodies because of how cool the new villain was, and some clothing items were becoming really popular because of it. You can catch him Mirko. She's got nothing on you Kirima, show her that you are just way too slippery. Naruto grinned as he backflipped over a crowd of people, and Mirko landed in front of him. She spun in the air and kicked at him, spinning around and throwing a punch at him the second he kicked missed. Naruto had updated his villain costume. Instead of wearing a medical mask like usual, he had actually bought a black mask to cover the lower half of his face and neck. Since it was the dead middle of the winter, this was not only to make him look cooler, but to also keep him warmer through the cold months. Mirko was really on fire with her combos. She threw her power around, and her speed was nothing to scoff at either. Naruto's agility though wasn't something that was easy to handle, even for the hero who dealt with him more than any other hero. His agility wasn't a threat, were it not for the fact that he was so unpredictable, not having the usual thought process of a villain. Mirko was grinning. You're heading down to jail with me punk. Mirko put her hands on the ground, and did the splits, spinning around and throwing a dozen fast kicks his direction. Naruto leaned backwards, and she fired off a downward kick, so he flipped as she shattered concrete. She was wearing replacements for all of the costume parts that he had stolen, and he had stolen multiple copies of things from her, but never the leotard. He had never escaped her in a place where he could steal that without leaving her naked in public. Naruto's grin was more easily visible through his current mask. Ah bun bun, I really do love it when you're feisty. Naruto leaned forward as she corrected her posture, and tapped his finger against the tip of her nose. With her teeth, she made to bite him, but he jerked his hand back. Now that was just rude. Here I am. Naruto sidestepped the punch aimed at his face, and spun around and swung her leg after. Ducking her kick, he reached up and grabbed her leg, her power throwing him into the air. Just loving that cute whittle button nose you have, and you attack me. Naruto grabbed onto the traffic signal, spun around, and balanced on top of it. Mirko blushed in anger, covering her nose with her hand even as she jumped towards Naruto again, landing on the traffic signal with him. She was agile too, and she was able to continue fighting even on the cramped space. Hey punk, what the hell are you even doing as a villain? If you're so skilled, why the hell aren't you applying for a hero school? Instead of causing all this trouble. Mirko uncovered her nose and started to throw some punches. Her arms weren't even close to as strong as her legs, but she had enough strength in her muscle to hurt a grown man with ease. Naruto dodged by slipping so that he was standing upside down, defying gravity as he looked upwards at Mirko. She jumped off the side and used her hands to hang onto the traffic signal, before she started to throw kicks at him as she hung. He dodged as if he were standing the right way up. I think the real question is, why are you still single, men too afraid of being choked out by your thighs? Let me tell you, that isn't the worst way to go. Naruto avoided the question completely as he teased her some more. Mirko watched him drop and land in the back of a moving truck, so she swung around and soared through the air, landing in the bed of the truck after him. No, seriously, if you were a serious villain, I'm pretty sure a ton of heroes would be dead. You would be a real threat to heroes if you weren't so weird for a villain. Mirko couldn't understand why anyone would waste such skill on something like collecting hero trophies like this. She would say theft, but he never actually completed his thefts. He returned the item he stole every time, because they were never his objective. The other heroes just think you're some punk, or an annoying kid, but on your debut as a villain, you took me down. You've never thrown a single punch at a single hero, or threatened even a single civilian. Mirko had never seen this villain attack even a single person, even when they were attacking him. He only ever evaded them until he was able to take them down in a rather non-violent way. Even now, he jumped off the truck when she aimed a high kick at his chin. He rolled across the street and onto the sidewalk, and she was quick to follow him, and tried to slam her foot into his chest. What? His non-violence aside, she still wanted to hurt him for escaping her so many times. I've never really been in a fight, and it doesn't sound like fun to hurt people. Naruto did answer that at least as rolled from his back to his feet. It was getting a lot harder to escape Mirko. She was getting used to the way he evaded her. Usually, he would have already given her a kiss and knocked her out. Mirko, since she was the first person that he escaped from, was something of a special hero. He liked to finish her off the same way each time, an almost chaste kiss to the lips. She was grinning when she realized the same thing as him. Having a hard time. Of course I'm going to be hard, you keep showing off those thighs and ass all the time. Naruto made a joke of her statement. He didn't want to show any of the other abilities of his quirk relating to his toad nature. The more he revealed about his quirk, the easier it would be for them to try and find him because of the quirk registry. It's Kirima and Mirko. In person. Gonna be late for work, yet a hero and villain are going at it. It was hard for people not to notice them as Naruto made a show of weaving his way through her attacks. Naruto felt the heat pads under his clothes start to lose the heat they were giving him, and he had to grin. Shit. Mirko whispered when she saw a screen, and saw a flipped car was rolling across the street towards a group of people crossing the road. She abandoned her prey, and rushed towards the truck. The truck was spinning and flipping out of control, showing that somebody had decided to ignore the speed limit under the icy road conditions. She braced herself, and stared down the truck as it slammed into her. She dug her feet into the street, and was pushed back, slowing down the truck with her body before it could hit the crowd of people that were behind her. The crowd behind her was safe. The driver wasn't though, he had been sent flying out of the front window when she had used her body as a shield. Her feet dug firmly into the street, and her body stuck in the metal truck and slightly injured. She would be unable to stop the man from flying into incoming traffic. The driver wasn't hit by a car though. Naruto, without even thinking about it, jumped towards the man and grabbed him by the back of his shirt, throwing him out of the way of the truck. He was not going to be injured. Naruto had thrown him a clear 20 feet away, so he was going to be hurt, but he wasn't as hurt as Naruto was going to be. Hit by the truck that nearly killed the man, Naruto knocked into the air behind the truck, before he was run over by a second car that rolled over him. Cars came skidding to a halt moments later. Shit. Mirko whispered when she saw her target was unmoving on the ground, her eyes starting to widen as traffic came to a screeching halt. She dug herself out of the street, her forearms bruised and possibly broken from taking the brunt of the force of the truck. She ran towards the villain's body and saw him laying face down on the other. Turning him over, she saw his eyes were closed. Naruto's eyes shot open and he leaned up, lowering his mask when his face was too close for her to see it clearly, and he planted a kiss on her lips. Pulling his mask up before she could see it, the poison took effect and she collapsed on the ground next to him. Naruto looked down at Mirko now that she could barely move, and he tapped the tip of her nose. Just kidding, and I'll be taking this, and giving this back to you. Naruto stood up and tossed her a new phone that he stole, after he took her fuzzy neck warmer again. Standing up and winking down at her, Naruto jumped up to the top of the nearest building as more heroes started to arrive. You punk. I'll get you. Several minutes later. Oh my god, this hurts so much. Fuck, shit, damn, this was the closest chase yet, but then wasn't it fun? Naruto grinned as he looked at the bruises that were forming on his chest and back, where he had gotten hit by a truck, and run over by a car. His body had moved on its own, and this was the price he had to pay for his act of heroism. Maybe next time I'll go see how much luck goes with Eraserhead or Midnight. I haven't taken anything from them. Naruto groaned in pain. Forcing himself to stand up, Naruto started to walk normally, out of costume, in the direction of the orphanage. Right now, the caretakers were on duty, so they were watching the kids, but it was approaching 6, and the kids needed somebody to help them with their homework, and make them a snack before they went to bed. He was going to be hurting tomorrow. Chapter 5: A Gentle Midnight. I've got eyes. Naruto, coming home from the store, raised his hands up with a grin on his face. Had his grin completely vanished from his face when he saw a pro hero was sitting amongst the children in the middle of the room. Naruto almost dropped his bags when he saw it was a famous pro hero at his home, and he was a villain. Also, a very seductive hero. Oh great, these kids were just telling me about how great of a big brother you are. I can see why. The taller than him woman, even without heels on, which were at the front of the door with the rest of the shoes, spoke as she rubbed the head of one of the young boys who had his head resting on her thighs. She had long, spiked black hair, and the same shade of blue eyes as him. She wore a tight bodysuit underneath her BDSM gear, her hero outfit, which complemented her seriously attractive body. She looked naked since the skinsuit was the same color as her skin, just a shade lighter. Midnight, the 18+ only hero. He was a teenage boy. Naturally he knew who this bombshell was. Ni-chan Oni-chan. Naruto was surrounded by children, other than the smiling boy who was having his hair pet by Midnight. Naruto didn't take his eyes off of Midnight for even a second, and she just smiled at him and gently pushed the boy off her lap. Naruto started to hand out small tubs of ice cream and plastic spoons to the children, handing each their favorite ice cream. A hero at this little orphanage. I'm surprised, usually it's the other places that get visits from heroes. Naruto forced a smile on his face. Naruto blinked and did a head count, noticing that the triplets were missing. Where are Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest at? Naruto used his affectionate names for the triplets. Naruto averted his eyes from Midnight. Now only 3 ice cream tubs, small sized, left in the bag. They got adopted. Ah, good for them. Naruto smiled wide when he heard that. A couple adopting all 3 of the triplets was great for them, not being forced apart from their siblings. I guess there are extras now though. Naruto glanced over at Midnight, who was walking towards him and reached into the bag, taking a cup out. These look just. Midnight licked her lips sensually. Delicious. Midnight gave a shot at teasing Naruto, breaking the ice so to say. She saw his guard was still up higher than most teenage boys, so she just peeled the top off the ice cream and used the small spoon to take a bite. They were extras, he wouldn't mind. I'm sure a hero like you isn't just here to talk to kids. Naruto looked at her with a smile, because glaring wouldn't do him any good. The fact she hadn't told the kids who he was, the only natural reason she was there, was a good thing for him. She's here to see you. That's right, I'm here just for you. Midnight poked him in the forehead. Can we speak in private? Midnight asked normally, and Naruto stood up straighter and nodded his head. He had his own personal room in the orphanage, since it used to be his parents' room when they would stay late at night to take care of children. There is fresh snow on the ground, why don't all of you go build some snowmen? Naruto's suggestion was instantly appreciated by the children, as they ran to their rooms to go and get changed into their snow gear. When the children were all gone, Naruto turned back to Midnight. We can talk in my room. Naruto gestured for her to follow him. He had to find out a way to worm his way out of her grasp. As Midnight followed him, he was sure that he could feel her hero urge to arrest him rising. My hair is dark purple by the way, not the black you were thinking earlier. Common mistake, I see it in cute boys' eyes all the time. Midnight spoke as they reached Naruto's room. Naruto turned his head and glanced at her with a confused look. What? I'm sorry, what? Everyone always calls my hair black, it's just a really dark purple. Common mistake, it's not really that big a deal, like how people mix up frogs and toads all the time. Midnight explained with a wide smile on her face, sadistic in nature. Do you need me to wait outside while you hide your porn mags? Midnight asked him with a cocky smirk on her face. Wait outside just a moment. Oh, and honest one. I like that, that is a youthful teenage boy right there. Midnight pat him on the top of the head. Naruto snuck into his room without letting her see inside of it. He rushed over to his bed, and looked at his most recent trophy that he had gotten himself. Eraserhead's capture scarf. He had been something that he had a lot of trouble stealing, with Eraserhead making it difficult to use his quirk normally, but he had taken it. How did Midnight find out who he was? Naruto grabbed all of his hero trophies he had around the room, and threw them into the closet. Naruto closed and locked up his closet, tossing his own villain costume into the closet as well. "Okay, you can come in," Naruto called out, and he sat down on the bed, his hand slipping underneath his pillow and touching his hidden knife. Midnight walked in with a seductive hip sway, before she sat down at the chair in front of his desk, turning it to face him as she crossed her legs. "So, you've been skipping school a lot. I'm just here to check to see if you're alright, and talk with you about getting you back on the right track." Naruto's hand came out from under his pillow. "Oh, that. I've just got a lot on my plate with this place. I'm going to own this place in a few years anyway, and run it like my parents, so school isn't important." Naruto relaxed a lot more now that he realized that this wasn't about him being a villain, that maybe Midnight didn't even know that he was Kirima. It was a lot easier to relax with her in the same room. That was right, as she pointed out, he skipped school a lot. He actually went to school maybe once or twice every week. He skipped a lot. Education is important, and high school isn't just for learning, it's a place where you'll gain some of your best memories of your teenage years. Your toad quirk is pretty amazing, and in physical education, you've got top marks. I even talked with your teachers, and they said you're always helping people around your school. With your looks, attitude, and good quirk, I'm sure a hero high school would be perfect for you. Midnight explained a little more seriously, not an ounce of seductive purr to her tone. They were down to the issue at hand, the reason why she had been asked to help him out. She was good at getting young men to do what she wanted them to, and she was even better when it came to helping them steer their life in a better direction. I'm just not suited for it. Looking at how good you are with children, and your reputation around this area for giving people help when they ask, I would actually say you have the perfect disposition for hero work. Of course, it is your choice, but it would really be a shame. You're such a handsome young man, and being a hero would really give these children hope for the future. Midnight let out a small, this time seductive, sigh as she lowered her mask and bit the edge of it. This move always got guys to be putty in her hands, and end up putting them all in danger, because a villain wanted to attack them to hurt me? I'm not suited to being a hero, because I can't put their lives in danger. I want them to have a future. Naruto didn't even need to use his villain status as an excuse, his words rang true enough. Heroes were often subject to praise and admiration, but if he became a hero, and his real name ever became known, villains would attack the children he looked after. Midnight's eyes widened at his reason, before she nodded her head in complete understanding. That was an extremely well thought out reason. That's a shame, not all villains can be like Kirima, good people who just like to have a little fun. Midnight sighed and figured she should give up trying to get Naruto into a hero school. His reasons were good, he did have a future ahead of him even without schooling. Now that's a look. Midnight realized that Naruto was sending her a surprised look. You're a hero, you said something nice about Kirima. Well, other than a few heroes with extreme views, most of us have already realized Kirima is just a boy looking for attention. He always returns what he steals, and the stuff he takes from heroes are so easy for us to replace it isn't even a bother. He seems like a good kid to me, he just likes to have fun. Sadly, he uses his quirk in public and does commit crime, and it is a hero's job to catch villains. Midnight admitted that she, among with many others, didn't really hold any real negative feelings towards Naruto, though she didn't know Kirima and Naruto were the same person. They had a job they had to do, and using your quirk to commit crimes was something a hero wasn't allowed to ignore. He's like you in a way, a boy with serious potential, but didn't chose the life of a hero. Midnight finished off with a comparison. Just using your quirk in public would get you a warning from a police officer, not even that if your quirk was super harmless. Using your quirk in a way that disrupts the public though was a big no-no, and was usually met with hero intervention. Do you have any leads on him, like his identity? Naruto asked with a little more confidence in his voice. I'm sorry, I can't answer that, but if you find out anything, be sure to let me know. You know, I'm surprised you haven't been adopted. Your file said that you didn't just help run the place, but you were up for adoption. Midnight hadn't even remembered that until she realized they were still in an orphanage, and what Naruto's age was. You must be under a lot of stress, a boy your age helping take care of so many children. I hope you can find a way to release that stress. Midnight thought she was teasing him when she put her hand on her whip, and teased the tip. Naruto just grinned. You. Several days later. Have no idea. What's up Midnight, you just have no idea what I go through to get these, do you? Naruto asked in costume as he looked down at Midnight, a grin under his mask. He dropped down from the ceiling and tossed up a large diamond into the air. Seriously, it wasn't easy to do this, so, what R-rated secrets do you want to whisper into my ear? Naruto asked her as he tossed the diamond up into the air a few more times, before catching it and putting it into the front of his hoodie. Oh, a boy with sass, that just sets my sadistic side on fire. I'm going to teach you a lesson, and then I'll give you a special treat. Midnight flirted with him as she reached up and ripped part of her suit off, a light pink gas spilling out of her skin, uncontained by the suit. It started to fill the area, and covered Naruto in the gas. Naruto just grinned under his mask. You're wasting your time, your gas won't reach my lungs so easy. Naruto spoke as he grabbed her whip when she took a swing at him. Naruto spoke, but he never once breathed in through his mouth or nose when he did it. He's got a resistance to my quirk, this might be a little more of a challenge. Good thing I know how to hero without my quirk, since it's not very effective on women either. Midnight wrapped her hand around the side of her whip, and yanked on it. She pulled the thief off his feet and towards her, only for his feet to touch the ceiling and stick to it, right above where she was standing. So, what is a cutie like you doing as a villain? A little stress relief, a fun prankster, a boy with mommy issues who wants a nice older lady to punish him. Midnight snapped her whip as she pulled it back. Naruto let loose a loud laugh as he dropped down from the ceiling in front of her, and grabbed onto her wrist. She closed her mouth tightly, sending him a smirk, before he gripped her exposed bicep. He let go of her and jumped back when she tried to slap him, and he turned around and spanked his own behind to taunt her. Come and give me a spanking, Oni-chan. Fine, if you insist. Midnight raised her whip up, before it fell out of her grip, and she dropped to her knees, sitting down on her butt moments later. How, you didn't get your poison in my mouth? Midnight asked with her eyes widening. She made sure he didn't touch her mouth. Naruto showed his ungloved hands. I can adjust the danger levels of the poison from completely harmless to fatal, but I never said that it had to be ingested. Skin-to-skin contact is all I need to put a person down, though it isn't easy to get the perfect dose. Naruto stated with a grin, showing white poison dripping from the palm of his hand like sweat. Shaking the poison from his hand, Naruto walked over to Midnight, and leaned down to her level. Midnight just grinned a little at him. Gonna take my mask? Midnight asked him. Go ahead. What he didn't know was that she already bugged her mask with a tracker, so that she could find him. She was surprised when he slipped her heels off, and took her stockings, before putting her heels back on her. He even looked over them. She still grinned, before she was surprised when he reached into them and pulled out the trackers and them, small little things. You heroes really need to keep your meeting times a secret. I already know about the bugs, and despite what my quirk is, I'm not a fan of bugs. Naruto told her, and she blinked in confusion. What? His quirk was poison creation, wasn't it? Smack. Hey now. But you've been a bad girl, still, in your 30s and still single. Might want to think about finding yourself a man with prospects. Who knows, maybe somebody can see if the carpets match those purple drapes soon. Naruto teased her as he jumped out of the window, shattering the glass, leaving a very confused Midnight behind. Now she had to know who this villain really was. Also, she wasn't old. Chapter 6: A Gentle Memory. Midnight, you're certainly staying up late, be sure to get some rest, okay? You'll be a teacher at UA this year, and you will still be doing your hero duties, so you've got to make sure to stay well rested. Midnight was sitting in front of a computer, but she also had her phone on a stand on her desk, and she was speaking with her father over the phone on video chat. She had just answered the phone, and looking down at herself, she realized that she had never gotten out of her costume. Her father was just teasing her a little, of course, but she took her mask off and put her regular glasses on, and she still a sweater on over her hero outfit. She would get changed out of her hero costume when her father hung up. So, how have you been, my little flower? I've just been doing some research, some stuff that Kirima said to me a few weeks ago has been stuck in my head. I've contacted the public records office to get permission to go through their files in the search for who he might be. Midnight stated as she rubbed her cheek, staring at the computer screen in front of her. Since Kirima never revealed a lot about his quirk, other than the poison aspect of it, people just assumed his ability to jump across buildings was him using thick poison to stick to walls. Oh, Kirima, he's a funny one. He seems a lot like a kid who just wants a little attention. His parents must not pay any attention to him at home, or teach him any better. Poison, sticking to walls, and he made a joke about bugs. In Japan, even when I narrow it down, there are still hundreds of people with quirks that cover these basics. There's the Asu family, all of them have the frog quirk. Midnight explained it to her father. There were dozens of people with the frog quirk, multiple dozens on both sides of the Asu family, who had a tradition of producing a ton of people with that quirk. There were a dozen of animal-related quirks that allowed for all of those bases, and she was able to narrow it down a little by searching only through the males who were between 13 and 17 years old. Still, she had dozens of suspects even as she looked through those names as well. I don't understand your hero work. Speaking of family, when are you going to settle down and start one of your own? I want to hug a grandchild before my time comes. Her father spoke with a firm tone, and Midnight sputtered for a moment in shock, having not expected that. I'm not that old. You're already 30, dear, and you're not getting any younger. When I was your age, you were already 3 years old, and let me tell you something, and it was a miracle. We adopted a child, thinking we couldn't have one, and then you were a happy surprise a few months later. I miss your brother. Her father seemed saddened as he remembered her older brother, though both her brother and her mother had passed away in a villain attack. She nodded her head in agreement, since she missed them too. It was just her and her father in the family now. I'm just fine, and I'm not old yet. I'm just not super young is all. I can't afford to settle down right now, or take care of a baby. With pro hero work and being a teacher, I just don't have the time to raise a child who needs a lot of attention. Midnight blinked a few times, before a wide smile started to cross her features. She looked through the list of people with quirks that would fit the bill of what Kirima's quirk might be. Naruto Uzumaki. Though, he couldn't be Kirima, since Kirima had yellow eyes with bar pupils, and their personalities were different. Not to mention, Naruto spent most of his time at the orphanage with the kids he helped out with. Still, seeing his name in the list, and her talk with her father, combined with her own thoughts, had given her a very great idea. A few weeks later. Man, this one sucked. You're without a doubt the closest one to having captured me, but still no dice. Naruto sucked in his breath, poison dripping from any part of his exposed skin. Once more, he had been faced with another member of the top 10, this time the number 10 hero, Gang Orca, a very large man with a body that looked similar to a killer whale, with all the abilities of a killer whale to back up his appearance. He was strong, fast, and the way he could paralyze somebody with sonic waves had been tricky, though thankfully his own toad abilities also made him stronger, faster, and more durable than a normal person. Also, since his quirk included toad abilities, including creating sound waves of his own that he had been able to use to neutralize Gang Orca's hypersonic waves, and prevent himself from being paralyzed by them. Just what is your quirk? Gang Orca asked politely as he laid down on the ground, his face against the concrete. All of his sidekicks were surrounding him as well, after he had gone down in the battle, though his opponent never actually threw an attack. They had tried to capture Kirima for him, only to fall to the poison as well. Poison alone can't neutralize my sound waves, or enhance your body to be as fast or evasive as you are. Gang Orca looked out of the side of his eye at the one who defeated him. Naruto looked down at him, and took his trophy, his red tie, and put it into his pocket, before he calmed down his breath. Now that would be. Naruto's phone started to go off, and he looked at it, and saw it was one of the caretakers from the orphanage. That was weird. They usually never called him until they wanted him to go and get something for the kids while he was out and about. Naruto jumped up and landed on the side of the building, before he started to hop higher and higher, until he was on the top of a taller building in the area. Sup, you're speaking with Naruto, watch me. Naruto answered his phone now that he was out of earshot of any heroes. Where are you right now? Just taking a walk, gotta stay in shape and all that jazz. Why are you calling me? Shouldn't you be taking care of the kids? Naruto asked, since they had a job to do, and they should be doing their job instead of wasting time talking to him. Yeah, it was technically their job to take care of him, but in a few years, he would be their boss. The relationship between him and the caretakers was an odd one. They made sure never to get on his bad side since it could affect their job in the future. How fast can you get back here? Ever since he became a teen, they never really set a curfew on him or asked him to come back just to come back. Hey, I've got a bone to pick with you. Give me maybe 30 minutes, 45 possibly. I wandered kind of far away. Naruto stated as he jumped back when he saw Mirko jump up to the top of the building. Naruto hung up his phone and put it back into his pocket, before he looked and saw Mirko land right in front of him. Sup bun, I've already returned what I stole, and took my trophy from Gang Orca, and I don't have a lot of time left to play today. Can we time this for same time next week? Naruto asked her as he gestured off the building right down towards the poisoned gang Orca and his gang of poisoned heroes. Mirko's eye twitched, and she pounded a fist into her open palm. The answer was, grrrrrrrr, whatever, it's not like I wanted to chase you anyway. You better commit a crime next week, at this time, in this city though, and don't get caught by any other heroes before I catch you. Mirko growled at him in a half-shouting tone. She relaxed her shoulders, though she had flushed cheeks as well. Well, thanks for under. Mirko grabbed him by the hoodie, and pulled him into a searing kiss, glaring into his eyes, slipping her tongue into his mouth. She let go of him and disconnected, before she stepped back. Naruto was shocked when he watched her go faint from taking some of his poison. His body was still coated in a fresh layer of poison he had yet to allow to fade thanks to his recent encounter with Gang Orca. I'm still a pro hero, dumbass. Mirko collapsed onto her side, and glared up at him. If I let a criminal escape, while being able to chase them, I would be a failure as a hero. I might not be able to move, but this time it was me who kissed you, you got that? Mirko glared up at him, making sure to put emphasis on her words just so that he understood. He didn't steal a kiss from her today, no, today she got him back and took it from him, and he didn't defeat her either. She used his poison to defeat herself. She didn't lose, she took herself out of the game, there was a difference. Then, I guess I'll be off then. Naruto jumped off the side of the building, since he didn't know what to say to that. Mirko was weird today. Later. I'm back, so what do you need me for? Naruto asked as he walked into the main office without feeling the need to knock on the door when he entered. He saw a somewhat familiar head of dark purple hair, but done up in a spiky ponytail, and she was out of her hero costume. She actually looked pretty different while wearing a non-sexual office dress that covered her body up decently like a working adult. Sadly for her, though he didn't know her real name, Naruto could recognize Midnight by the sound of her voice alone. Toad Quirk, being able to tell the difference between voices was a mini ability. Oh, hello Naruto, we were introduced a few weeks ago, but this will be your first time meet the real me, not the pro hero Midnight. I'm Kirima. Midnight introduced herself by her real name to Naruto, since she was out of costume. Midnight, no Nemuri, got up and gave a normal bow to Naruto. She extended her hand to him, and he took it. The poison on his body had already dried up until he released some more, making him safe to touch for the moment. I thought I said I wasn't going to go to UA. Naruto told her. She nodded. Well, I was talking with my own father, and I'm already 30, it's time I settled down and started my own family, but as a pro hero and teacher, I just don't have the time to raise a baby, but there isn't a law saying that your first child has to be a baby. Nemuri explained with a growing smile. Oh, Naruto realized and a large grin came over his face. Well, there are a ton of really good kids here. I can give you a tour, and you can pick from them. They've all got really cool quirks, and I've made sure they're really well behaved. Naruto hadn't expected her here to adopt, and if that was the case, he would make sure to match her up with the perfect child for her. He grabbed her by the wrist, and started to pull her. I'll take you to the girls' rooms first. As a single woman, a girl might be better for your lifestyle, but if you're looking for a boy, we've got really good boys here too. Naruto was excited. Another of his kiddos was getting a real home today, and starting their new lives with a family of their own, instead of their little makeshift family, one that was always falling apart. I've already picked. Oh, well, that is cool too, just tell me their name and I'll go. Naruto Uzumaki. No. I'm told, nobody wants me, my quirk is totally lame, and I'm going to turn 16 this year. Naruto stated as he waved her off. She was joking, this was his home, the place his parents built together. It was his destiny to be here forever, taking in kids and finding them homes. You're also up for adoption, like any child here. The head caretaker spoke to Naruto from behind the front desk. Naruto was stunned. Nemuri smiled. You're right, you're 15, you're old enough to understand I won't always have time for you, and you're a good kid. You should be allowed to experience your own youth. So I adopted you, it's not much, but welcome to my small family. Nemuri smiled and extended her arms to hug Naruto. When she had met him weeks ago, she had thought it was sad that a young boy was being forced to spend his time looking after others, instead of being allowed to chase his own dreams, and take care of children that would just leave him. Kirima mocking her, and her father calling her to ask her about her settling down, had made her remember Naruto and the orphanage. Then, she remembered that everyone could win if she adopted him. Her father would have a grandson, she would have started a family with a son that was mature enough to not need all of her attention, and Naruto would gain a family with her so that she could give him her unspent maternal love. Naruto wasn't smiling, and he didn't even make a move to hug her. You. Naruto looked at the caretaker with fury in his eyes. Just like any child, you're up for adoption. If a viable parent wishes to adopt you, they can do so. Though, since you were adopted, your father's will states that this orphanage will transfer to the government so that you can fully enjoy your new family. Naruto stopped shaking. Fine. I'm not taking your name though. If my name is the only thing I'm keeping from my parents, I'm not going to lose that. Naruto spat out, his words as harsh as poison. Nemuri's smile softened. She didn't say anything though she knew this was what was best for him, so that he could actually experience life. She knew this was going to be a very hard transition for him. She was changing his life, a life he had become accustomed to, but she was old enough, though still young, to have the life experience to know that he needed more experience in life, to see if this was the path he really wanted to take. Hopefully, he would come around and see it her way. Chapter 7: A Quirky Confession. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I totally didn't know you would be losing your inheritance, or know about any of the will. I just lost the orphanage, not my inheritance, my real parents. Naruto sat in a car with Nemuri, frowning deeply. He had been silent and it had been awkward for a while. Wanted the person who adopted me to not have access to the other children, to protect them. Naruto stated with venom on his tongue. Not against his parents or the children. In a super-powered world, this was the best thing for the other children. His parents had died in an accident that had been caused by a villain and hero fighting. Neither of them were heroes in the way that people judged others these days. They were just the heroes of children with no families, which was more important in Naruto's view. His parents had no doubt, through years of raising lost children, realized that they could die and leave him an orphan just like the others. So they wrote their wills with both him and the orphanage in mind. Protect. Nemuri wasn't sure what to make of that. Naruto didn't tell her. The orphanage was a great place for a dangerous villain to get their hands on, easy to train minions with quirks, ones who didn't have families, and thus could be trained into super loyal lackeys. People would do what they could to get their hands on the children, and the best way to do that would have been to get to Naruto, but by adopting Naruto, one loses out on gaining the orphanage. He didn't know what other reasons his parents had for this in their will, but he knew they had to have other reasons. It was an awkward silence. I'm going to do my best to be the kind of mother you need, Nemuri stated to him with a small smile, slowing to a stop as the law dictated. She glanced over at him. All of his worldly possessions were just barely enough to fit into 3 boxes, and he hadn't allowed her to watch him get them all together. Even now, he was being distant about even looking in her direction, and he was staring out of the window. He didn't even nod or show any sign he was paying attention to her, and she wiped the smile off of her face. She knew he was angry with her, and rightfully so. If you're this against it, you could have. This is Japan. Until an orphan is a legal adult, they aren't given an option about being included in the family of another without good and valid reason. Orphans can't decide who can and cannot adopt them, otherwise orphans would only ever get adopted by people who offer them nice stuff. Naruto bit back at her harshly. He wasn't a legal adult, and he had no reasons a government official would find as good and valid for refusing to be adopted. Him not wanting to be adopted wasn't good or valid in the eyes of the court, not when Midnight was a famous pro-hero with decent morals, and was as hard-working as she was. No, he had no choice, which was why he didn't have the chance to fight this, and though he could have refused to Nemuri and asked her to pick somebody else, that too was off the table if the paperwork had already been completed. He couldn't afford to have a meltdown either, or risk accidentally revealing his secret to them in a blind rage. What he hated even more than being adopted, was the feeling of being trapped. The caretaker told me you would be fine with it, though a little stubborn. Nemuri thought with a frown. The caretaker had really pushed for her to adopt Naruto. She herself had originally wanted Naruto to get there, to talk with him, but because he was taking so long to arrive, the caretaker had already started and helped her finish the paperwork. She didn't tell Naruto this though. She knew Naruto didn't want to hear her excuses, he was too angry to listen to her, so she would let him stay angry at him until he had bonded to her a little. Then she would make sure that he got the full story, though she wondered why he was late to the meeting in the first place. If he had arrived on time, then he might have been able to talk with her. She pulled into her apartment's driveway, getting to her assigned parking spot. "Do you need a hand getting your stuff inside?" Nemuri turned to look at Naruto when she parked, but already saw him outside of the car, getting all of his things without even looking at her. She sighed to herself, seeing that this was going to be a journey in of itself since he didn't seem to want to give her a chance. I do understand why he is like this though. I just hope he's willing to listen to my side of the story when he gets a little older. Nemuri smiled sadly into her reflection in the car mirror. She followed after him, her longer legs letting her take the lead as they walked up the stairs to her apartment. Naruto's eye twitched. 9. Yep, good old B9, second floor, 9th room. Been here since I graduated from UA myself, and set up my agency here. Nemuri stated with a wide smile. She had fond memories in this apartment. I cleaned up the guest room, so make yourself at home. This is your home now after all. I've got to go speak with the apartment landlord, and let him know about you living here. My rent is going to go up over this. Nemuri waved at him as she started to walk back down the stairs. Oh, I saw you were using a flip phone the other day, so I got you a new phone, and added it to my phone plan. Nemuri stated as she saw him take his old phone from his pocket and look down at it. Right, his phone was going to be taken off the orphanage data plan, since he was no longer going to be living there, so he needed a new phone and a new number. Naruto walked into the clean apartment. The only thing dirty about the place was Nemuri's midnight costume was laying on the couch, and she had her old costume hanging on the wall before she had been forced to change it. Naruto passed by the table, and saw that his new phone was there. It wasn't the newest model, nor was it a used one either. It was a decent phone that was leagues better than his own. It had a sticky note on top of it though, so he looked at it. "Welcome to the family, clan. Heroes and their jokes." Naruto grunted as he put the phone in his pocket reluctantly, since he didn't have a choice in the matter but to accept it. His own phone was going to be useless soon enough. He saw Midnight's room, and he saw an open room that he could see was recently cleaned, so his room. He ignored everything else and walked into the room, and set his boxes down. There was a dresser, a closet, a bed way nicer than his one at the orphanage, and he had a portable heater next to the bed, a heater that looked brand new. Yet, since it's still pretty cold, and I keep the apartment on the cool side, I figured you would be more comfortable if your room was warmer. This was made for people with quirks that don't deal well with the cold. You can leave it on, and it won't cause any fires either. Figured you might want it. Naruto wasn't surprised when Nemuri walked up behind him and stated that, twisting the knob on the heater and turning it on. A gentle, warm breeze started to flow out of it into the room, and Naruto noticed that there were several other things in the room that seemed to be new as well. She won't buy me off. Naruto turned his head away from Nemuri with a glaring glance into her direction. Yeah, I looked up the toad quirk, so I tried to make this room comfortable for you. Got a humidifier to keep the room nice too, and I got permission to paint the room. You seemed like a vibrant guy. Nemuri commented as she gestured to the room. She didn't want to sound quirkist, judging him based on his quirk, but with his black pants and orange hoodie, she guessed that he liked colors that were related to toads. Green, brown, orange, red, and black. Orange, red, and black, and toad. That sounded familiar to her for some reason, but she couldn't pinpoint the reason why a toad with those colors sounded familiar to her. The room is the same colors as my Kirima outfit, orange, black, and red. Naruto noticed the colors, but he could also tell that she didn't do that on purpose. Those colors were his Kirima colors, but they were also the colors of some of the more popular toad breeds as well. It was why he chose the colors he chose, though nobody needed to know that. He liked the colors, and they were something that worked with his quirk. You're not going to try and force me to be a hero. Naruto turned and glanced at her, looking her dead in the eye. She shifted a little, but she wasn't uncomfortable. Not if you don't want to, but I do want you to go to a good high school. I'll be a teacher at UA, and it is more than just a hero school. There are also general studies. I am sorry you lost your orphanage, but maybe this is your chance to make your own. Nemuri wanted to support his dreams if she could. His dream might have been crushed by her, but maybe she could help repair some of the damage that she had done. She could help him start a new orphanage. I've got to unpack. Okay. I'm going to make dinner. If you need help, let me know. Nemuri stated as she left the room, closing the door behind her. Later that night. I'm going to make dinner. If you need help, let me know, bitch. Naruto whispered with a deep frown under his mask. He wasn't going around town as Kirima tonight to commit any crimes or anything. He just wanted to get out of the apartment with midnight. He jumped from building top to building top, hopping quickly and without even a single keeping his eyes completely open. He was in costume. He might as well commit a crime and collect a trophy from whatever hero was around. Aha. Not even a week, and I get a chance to have another go at you then. Naruto dodged Mirko out of pure instinct alone, backflipping and landed on top of the next building. She followed after him, and he raised his arms up, sitting down on the edge of the building. I haven't done anything yet. I promise, next week, I'll steal from some museum in this area. I'm just really angry and need to clear my head a bit. Naruto told Mirko as she landed next to him, clicking her teeth and sitting down. She had recovered from his poison hours ago, and she had wanted to stretch her legs again, and imagine her luck when she ran into her favorite villain to chase as well. If he wasn't doing any crimes, at the moment, then chasing him would be less fun. Also, if he was just out to clear his head because of emotional reasons, beating him would feel way less satisfying. Beating you up won't be fun if you're doing anything to deserve it. Mirko just sat down next to him, and watched the city down below the buildings, keeping an eye out for crime. She knew as a hero, she was sitting next to a villain, but this was a little different. This villain was special, and she wanted to beat him at his best, on the top of his game, not when he was conflicted about something. Also, since he returned all of his stolen goods, it was kind of weird to attack him for a theft that he made amends for. He was a one-of-a-kind villain. He was a quirky villain. It's cold outside tonight. Meh, with my quirk, it doesn't bother me, and with muscles like these Mirko flexed her arm and gave her bicep a kiss. The cold is just a thing of the past. Anyway, wanna talk about whatever it is that is putting you down? Mirko asked him with a wide grin. She had to admit that she was curious about what had him. Not really. Okay then. If he didn't want to talk about it, then she wouldn't even try and force it out of him either. He would speak his mind when he wanted to, not before that point. Sometimes people didn't want to talk their issues out. We're both adults here, personal issues aside. Wanna start dating after I take you down and all of that stuff? Mirko asked with a giant grin on her face. She thought about it, and she had fun chasing him. She could tell that when she caught him, it wouldn't be enough. This was a villain that she wanted to beat up and capture more than just his body, possibly his heart. She was 25 years old, and she was getting to the point where she needed to take a boyfriend at the very least. She didn't want to be like the wild pussycats or Midnight, and not take a boyfriend until she got much older. She had fun when chasing this villain, and other than being a villain, he was a good person. Adults. Naruto looked at her, ignoring the dating thing for now. How old are you? Naruto asked her, and she puffed out her chest and cried. Hey young 25. I turned 26 soon though. What are you 21? 22. I'm 15. Also, don't tell anyone I'm 15. Ahahahaha. Oh my god, that is priceless. Mirko just laughed when she quickly realized that this super skilled villain that was evading every hero that faced him, was young enough to be starting his first year of high school soon. All of the top heroes, including herself, should be ashamed that they had been taken down by a 15-year-old. Guess I got to wait a few months to be a romantic interest then huh? Mirko hummed out loud when she stopped laughing, realizing there was about a 10-year gap between them. That wasn't small. What? Naruto was just confused by Mirko. In this prefecture, just because the age of consent is 13 is a good portion of Japan, some places argue the corruption of minors and raise local age of consent to about 16. The only exception to this law is when the two people are in a sincere romantic relationship. Mirko quoted the law with quotation marks and everything. Yet, he had a good body, and was fun for her. Not to mention she already considered him to be somebody that she could pursue, so she didn't mind if he was a bit younger than she was or a villain. Anyway, heroes live in the danger zone, can't let something like age mess with my standards. Anyway, it wasn't like I was ever going to go public with a relationship, bad publicity to date a villain. Mirko shrugged her shoulders. She had to admit, this was a little bit of a surprise, but if anything, it gave her something to really look forward to. He was still going to grow, mature, get stronger, meaning that he would become even more of a challenge for her to catch in the future. Are you stupid? No, but I am attracted to your balls. Mirko realized what that sounded like, and by that I mean, I'm attracted to your guts. You're my type of guy, but don't worry about me going boy crazy like a certain wild pussycat. I'm just a girl who knows what she wants, and doesn't see the point of pussyfooting around. Mirko got up and stretched herself out. She couldn't stay seated for long, she just had too much energy she needed to get out of her body, part of why she was perfect to be a hero. She could pursue villains until they were out of energy, and then beat them up. 10 years. Mirko flicked his forehead. Kirima, you figure out the personal shit in your life first, get that settled, and then respond to my confession. Just like I don't want to capture you when you're not at your best, I don't want a boyfriend who made a decision when he wasn't in his right mind. Accept or reject me, do it when your head is on straight. Because, if you date me, then there's no going back from me. Mirko looked into his blue eyes, before she blinked when she noticed that his eyes were blue, instead of the yellow that they usually were. Also, he lacked the orange rings around his eyes no longer looked like a toad's eyes. She didn't comment on it though, and just filed it away in her head for later. She wasn't going to try and figure out his secret identity until she was chasing him down for real. This soft moment between them wasn't the right time or place to chase his ass down and beat him up. You're really that confident? Naruto asked her with a raised eyebrow. I'm a tan-skinned, white-haired, bunny girl with a bombshell body, an awesome personality. And don't forget how humble you are just so humble. If you had a middle name, it would be Humble. Naruto told her, since she was bragging about herself a lot there. She shrugged her shoulders and leaned back a little, so that she was about to fall off of the building. She would be fine. Hey, people should speak their minds. Being humble is just a person deciding to downplay their own good traits. Anyway, there is a crime going on a few blocks away. See you later, Kirima. Mirko saluted at him and fell off the side of the building, kicking off and chasing after a moving car that was causing chaos in the roads, and Naruto could hear gunfire. Well, Mirko took his mind off of his anger for the moment. Looking on the bright side. Thanks for listening. Remember to check out original fanfic in the description.